Hi, my name is Michael Garrity, MSP Solution Specialist at Commvault. In this video, we're going to go over how to set up and configure Wasabi's cloud storage integration with Commvault's cloud platform. To begin, we're going to start inside of the Wasabi console. In my case, I haven't created a bucket yet, so that's the first thing I'm going to want to do. I'm going to navigate to buckets and create a bucket. To put your bucket name, I'm just going to put my name in here. You'll probably want to do something that reflects what this bucket is used for, though. In my region, I'm just going to go ahead and select East 1, but of course you'll select the one that's nearest to you and that works for your customer. If you're fine with all the defaults, you could just create the bucket, but we'll review a few additional options here. For properties, the important piece I want to point out here is the object lock. This is what gives you immutability inside of this bucket. So if you want this enabled, you're going to want to enable bucket versioning and then enable that object lock. Just be aware that with this, versions of objects are added to your total data storage costs, so it will increase your spend here. I'm going to leave logging off, but if you are looking to enable logging, you could either enable it here, or for Wasabi's best practice, you could create a different bucket that has the logging enabled for this bucket. I'm going to leave my replication off for now. It's optional if you want to turn this on at this point or configure a job later on. For my example, I don't need any tags. If you have any that are applicable, enter them here. And then go ahead and review all the options, make sure they're correct, and create the bucket. We'll now see that the bucket has been successfully created. Now that we have a bucket created, we want to follow least privilege and set up a policy that only has access to this bucket. To do that, I'm going to go into policies. I'm going to click create policy and type in a name. I'm putting my bucket name and bucket policy in there. Now for the policy itself, I went ahead and created a policy that helps follow the least privilege for all the permissions that Commvault will need. I'm going to paste this in here. Now to review what all these are, the version you're going to keep the same. The first option here is to allow the viewing of all S3 buckets with the list all my buckets. For the resource, you're going to put a wildcard in here. Next, we're going to allow all the specific permissions that Commvault needs specifically for the bucket that we created. This includes the get bucket location, get object, put object retention, put object tagging, list bucket, delete object version, list bucket versions, and put bucket object lock configuration. For the resource, we're going to name that bucket that we had just created, as well as a /wildcard, which will allow access to all the subdirectories beneath it. Those are all the options that we need for the policy. Then we're going to go ahead and just click create policy. All right. We now have successfully created that policy. Now the next thing that we're going to want to do is apply that policy to either a user or a group. If you're going to have multiple users with access to that bucket, it may be easier to just set up a group. We'll walk through that process. So to create that group, we're going to click groups on the left and create group. Then put my bucket name followed by bucket group. The group has now been successfully created. Now that the group has been created, we're going to want to assign that policy that we had just created to the group. To do that, we're going to click into the group, scroll all the way to the bottom where we see policies. We'll expand out this card and search for the policy that we created and select that. After that policy has been assigned, it's automatically saved, so there's nothing else that you need to do on this page here. The next thing that we're going to do is create a user and assign it to this group. To do that, we're going to navigate to the users option on the left-hand navigation menu. To create the user, we're just going to go to the top right and click create user. We're going to create a username. I'm just going to call it my bucket name, bucket user. For type of access, it only needs programmatic access with the create API keys. It doesn't need access to the console. You will see this require MFA option down here. This is typically used in conjunction with access to the console. Since we're not giving this user access to the console, we shouldn't have to enable that for this user. Next is the groups. So we're going to go ahead and assign this user to the group that we had previously created, and then click Next. For policies, since we attached the policy to the group itself, we don't have anything to do on this page here, so we could just click Next. We can review all our settings to make sure they look correct and click Create User. We'll now be given an access key as well as a secret key. Make sure to copy these to your clipboard as we're going to need them in the next step. Additionally, you could download these keys to hold on to them as needed. I'm just going to X out here for now. And then click Close from this Create User modal. That now completes the setup inside of the Wasabi console. The next thing that we're going to want to do is get everything set up on the Commvault end. For this part of the video, we're going to assume that you've already went into the Commvault MSP portal, created your customer, assigned your services, and started the process of either deploying out a gateway or a media agent for that specific customer. Once that's been completed and you're ready to add the cloud provider, all you have to do is from the command center on the left-hand side, navigate to Storage and click Cloud. In my case, I already have a few different cloud providers added to my portal. To begin adding a new cloud provider, on the top right corner, click Add. For the first drop-down of type, scroll all the way to the bottom and select Wasabi Hot Cloud Storage. The next option is the name. This is just your familiar name so that you can recognize it inside of a Commvault Cloud dashboard. I'm going to go ahead and put mgarrity Wasabi bucket. The service host is the URL. If you look inside of Wasabi's documentation and search for service URLs for Wasabi storage regions, you'll find all the respective URLs that you need. My bucket was created in East 1, so I'm just going to go ahead and grab this URL. I'd mentioned already, this assumes that you had already deployed out a media agent. So go ahead and select the respective media agent that you wish to use. For the credentials, if you don't have any credentials stored inside of the Commvault's cloud, you'll go ahead and add those here. To do this, click Add. The top items will pre-populate based on where we entered this modal. For the credential vault, I'm using our built-in vault. If you're using one of our external providers, you can select that from the drop-down. Credential name, again, this is just your familiar name. I'm going to put mgarrity Wasabi bucket creds. And then you'll need the access key as well as the secret key from those previous steps that we had performed inside of the Wasabi console. I'm going to go ahead and paste those in. If you'd like, you can add a description for what this credential is for as well, but I made it pretty obvious from the name. I'm going to go ahead and click Save. All right, our new credential was created and it's automatically selected here. Now we're going to want to select our bucket. So first we're going to have to click Detect. This is where it uses that List All Buckets permission to grab a list of any bucket inside of that environment. It found my one bucket, so I'm going to go ahead and select it. The next option is to use deduplication. This will help reduce those cloud storage costs by using deduplication. If this isn't selected, you could go ahead and check it off. Next is the media agent that you want to use for the deduplication database. I'm going to go ahead and use the same one as above. Once everything's completed, we'll go ahead and click Save. We'll now see that mgarrity Wasabi bucket has been successfully created. Now that we've added Wasabi as a cloud storage option, we'll be able to use this inside of any of our plans. So in the left-hand navigation menu, if we go to Manage and then select Plans, we can create a new plan. In this case, I'll do a backup plan. Plan name, I'll call it my Wasabi Hybrid. Then for the storage policy, I want to use a local disk library. It's because in my case, it's hybrid. I want that local copy first, and then I'm going to send it to Wasabi. So I could go ahead, set that if I wanted to. I could change my retention period. And then after that, I can add another copy. And this will be named my Wasabi copy, let's say. And for the storage, I could select my mgarity Wasabi bucket that I had previously added. And then I could select which jobs I wanted to copy to the cloud, whether it was all jobs or specific types. And again, I could customize the retention as needed. Now, in the event that you wanted to go straight to Wasabi, in that first step, rather than selecting the local disk library, you would just select the Wasabi bucket that you had created. After this, you could go through the wizard, complete the scheduling options, and then submit it to create this plan. I'm just going to leave the schedule the same and click submit. Now my plan has been created, and here's all the settings that you could change if you needed to. One additional thing you'll want to set is if you go into the storage policies and select your Wasabi copy, in the second box here, you'll see immutability. If you are looking to have immutability on the Wasabi storage copy, you're also going to want to enable a compliance lock inside of the Commvault Cloud setting here. Now you will get a warning here letting you know that this feature cannot be disabled and you won't be able to change the retention after this has been enabled. So make sure that everything is set the way that you want it and everything looks correct before you enable this. And once you're ready, you could just type enable compliance lock and click confirm. And now that the plan has been created and configured the way we want it, it's ready to be used with any of the workloads that will utilize a backup plan. And that concludes the tutorial on how to add Wasabi into Commvault Cloud's platform.